Hey guys, welcome back. I'm going to try this once more because I saw that the video got cut off. So today we're going to talk about the keto diet, basically what it is and how it compares to the metabolic balance program. Okay, so before I dive in, as you guys know, I don't believe that there is one way to eat for everyone, so you have to experiment and really find what works for you. So when it comes to ketosis, so ketosis is simply your body in a state where your ketone bodies have been elevated because after a prolonged period of time, your glucose stores have actually been so low to the point that they are now starving your brain, so your body is now producing higher amounts of ketone bodies to fuel your brain. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Your body goes into a phase called lipolysis. So lipolysis is where your body is actually breaking down fat. So you have what's called triglycerides in your body. These are basically stored fat. They have a glycerol backbone and then little guys that come off of them that are called fatty acids. And what happens is when you are in lipolysis, your body breaks these apart and will use what's now called free fatty acids to fuel the mitochondria in your cells. The problem is that these free fatty acids will not cross your blood-brain barrier. So your brain, the rest of your body has fuel, but your brain has now been deprived. So after a prolonged period of time of being in lipolysis, you eventually get to a point where your brain's in like starvation mode. So this is where your body starts creating higher amounts of ketone bodies because these ketones will cross your blood-brain barrier and they will fuel your brain. So that is essentially what's happening. So when you're in ketosis, it's not that you need to be in ketosis to burn fat. Your body will burn fat even without being in ketosis, which is why people for years have been losing weight without doing the whole ketogenic diet. It's just that when you are in ketosis, you're in a place where your body is now using a whole new pathway for fuel. Instead of using glucose, which is our fast burning fuel, it is now using fat. Now, the reason why they initially started this was like back in 1920s, and it was for children who had severe epilepsy and were having constant seizure attacks in general. So that is why they initially came out with it. And they also found it was really helpful for cancer patients because sugar ultimately feeds cancer cells. So by training your body to use fat as a source of fuel, you could essentially starve your cancer cells of their form of sugar and their source of fuel. So with the whole keto diet, I think if you are doing it properly, I think you will experience amazing weight loss. You'll experience, a lot of really great probably transformations with your health. I just, it's really, really, really important to just understand what's happening and really making sure that for one, you are getting the right amount of vegetables. I find because there is such a low amount of protein and carbohydrate, your body is so brilliant that even with just a bit too much protein, your body will start breaking down the protein into amino acids, which is then going to be turned into glucose. So that is why you can get kicked out of ketosis so quickly, even if you have too much protein. Even though it's not technically sugar, your body will turn it into sugar. That's how brilliant your body is. So in the whole keto diet, because you have such a high amount of fat that is required, I'm finding that a lot of people are doing a lot of dairy, and because it for one is a good source of fat but also protein, but because dairy also has a good amount of carbohydrates, it doesn't really leave you very much room for vegetables. So it is so essential to making sure that you have the right amount of vegetables because for one, your body needs your minerals, especially potassium, to have the right stomach acid. And also to create bile. If you don't have the right stomach acid, if you don't have enough bile, your body needs bile to emulsify and to break down fat. If you don't have that, you are going to bombard your liver, you are going to bombard your gallbladder, you're going to bombard your entire system, and the diet essentially, I just don't see how it would work long term. That is why they actually tell you to take potassium in a supplement form. So that is just one thing you really want to keep an eye out for, is making sure you have the right amount of potassium. If you are getting constipated, if you have leg cramps, that right there is a sign that you are low in also magnesium. Magnesium is found in all your vegetables. So if you are doing the diet, just really making sure that you have the right amount of vegetables and not bombarding on lots of dairy and just lots of other foods that are, I guess, higher in carbohydrates, just making sure that you can get carbohydrates from your vegetables would really, really, really help you out. And then the other thing too is, you can get fatty liver. Now you can get fatty liver from high alcohol content, from just drinking too much. You can get fatty liver from too many carbohydrates. But the same thing happens with too much fat. So what happens is in ketosis, your insulin levels is so low, which is awesome, but it's so low to a point where your body is drastically releasing a lot of triglycerides. So as I mentioned before, these triglycerides are your body's source of fuel, which then turn into ketone bodies. So because there's such a large amount being produced, it bombards the liver. And so that's why eating your vegetables is also so important, because your vegetables will clean out your liver. It'll keep things moving effectively and just being efficient. So if just really, really, really making sure you do a good amount of vegetables and do not neglect, and just not neglecting them will really give you a better transformation and a better transition and really help you out for your health long term as well. So the other thing I really want to talk about as well is quality. So, I know there's lots of fats. There's also, lots of protein, even though you're not having a large amount of protein, but I'm finding a lot of the fat is coming from the protein as well. So making sure that if you're doing, eggs and bacon every single day, just making sure that the quality is there too. I know that a lot of bacon out there, I'm not going to say where, I just don't want to bash any companies, but bacon is probably one of the worst ones to have so many different nitrates and chemicals pumped into it. And so are different qualities of chicken and beef and whatnot. Companies out there, if you think about the time that the animal was slaughtered and then packaged and then put on the shelf, it's there for a prolonged period of time. So companies are now pumping in toxins and chemicals to enhance color so it looks fresher. They're adding in chemicals to slow down, the whole oxidation process to make it last longer on the shelf. So just really making sure that the quality in your meat is there is really going to help you out in the long run. Making sure that there is no antibiotics, no hormones. Essentially, if you are eating meats that have been given hormones and antibiotics, it is going to be throwing off your endocrine system, throwing off your hormones, and also essentially the antibiotics in the animal meat will just then be essential to you just having antibiotics of your own. So any person that I know who's gone on antibiotics has either had gut issues after and has had to do a huge protocol to rebuild their gut system. So making sure that every single day, if you are eating good quality meat that has neither of those, will also really drastically help you out. So I'm going to kind of cut this short a little bit because I know that the videos for some reason are having a hard time streaming, but the way that it really is different from metabolic balance. So with metabolic balance, you get sent to your local blood clinic, you get your blood work done, so that way we know right off the bat where your inflammation is at, where your liver enzymes are at, where your blood sugar level is at. It's just, we want to know what is happening in your body chemistry so the company can then choose the right foods to bring things back to a natural balance. So at this point, you are doing 5 to 7 hours in between your meals. So that way in between each meal, you are properly digesting your food. And at that point, you're using up your glucose stores. So by the time you go to bed, between that 12 to 14 hours, your body is actually in lipolysis. Your body is now burning fat. Your body is now balancing your hormones. So with the keto diet, it's, I guess, similar in the sense where you are essentially wanting to fast for a prolonged period of time. I know most people are probably doing like a bulletproof coffee for breakfast and then just lunch and dinner. Oh no. Let's see if this is still working. Okay, I think we're good. Okay. Give me a thumbs up so I know that you can hear me and that we're still streaming. Okay, so with the metabolic balance, with the keto, it's it's pretty much the same idea where you are fasting for a prolonged period of time to really bring your insulin to a low level. Because when your insulin is low enough, this is when your body is actually going to start burning fat. When insulin is high and it's present, you are storing fat. So that is what both diets have in common. The main difference is when you are in ketosis, that is like a permanent, or not permanent, but it's in a phase where you're really, really, really depleting your glucose, so you are just using fat. Where with metabolic balance, you will bounce, I don't want to say you're not going into ketosis, but you're in a place where your insulin is essentially stabilized for a long period of time, very much like ketosis, but you're not in ketosis, you're burning fat, but you're not only just relying on fat. Your body will go into stages where it uses fat as a source of fuel. So I would say probably half of the day or so your body is using fat for fuel, where with ketosis, it would be more like 3/4 of your day. And that's why you're in keto, or maybe even more actually, depending on how many times a day that you're eating. So, what other questions did you guys have? Oh yes, one thing I want to point out is if you don't have a gallbladder, it is really important to do some research on the whole keto diet, because if you don't have a gallbladder, it is going to be a lot harder on your body to break down the fat. So just please do some research on that, and just, kind of do some digging and see if it makes more sense for you. Okay, so I am going to put this to an end because I don't want the video to cut out. I hope that answered all your guys' questions. I'm just trying to think of something else that I might have missed between the difference of, ketosis and metabolic balance. Essentially, both diets are designed to balance your blood sugar level. Both diets are designed to keep your insulin low. Essentially, ketosis is really just getting you to a place where you are mainly using fat for fuel, and then metabolic balance is getting you to a place where your blood sugar level is balanced. So there's also no hunger cravings, very much like the ketosis. You're burning fat. You're just not, like I said, relying on fat as your main source of fuel 24/7 or most of the time. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. I will get back to you as soon as I can. I am going to hop on over into the private hardcore living group. So if you want to see me there, I will, just pop on over. Otherwise, I will see you here next week. Bye.